So Patrick Beverley had a lot to say recently, and it made me wonder, is Chris Paul overrated? I should lead this off by saying that the relationship between Paul and Beverley isn't necessarily the best.
It gets Patrick Beverley losing control.
He said something, Paul said something to him, and he reacted inappropriately.
Let's just say it might be easier to get Charizard to listen to Ask Ketchum on a regular basis than trying to get either of these two players to say something nice about each other.
Charizard, you can't just quit in the middle of my most important match ever!
Now listen to Beverley's opinions on Paul as a player with that context. So we'll go through and listen to each of his takes and rate how accurate it is based on what we know from watching Chris Paul and the stats available to us. Let's get this started, shall we?
Let's do this.
Do guys in the NBA go to sleep early the night before playing the Phoenix Suns? Hell no. No.
You mean as a team, or would you talk about Chris Paul individually?
Chris Paul individually.
Okay.
No.
I mean, Patrick Beverley is just messy, man. Nonetheless, now I obviously have not played in the NBA. Yet.
The lie detector test determined that was a lie.
So I cannot necessarily speak to exactly how each player approaches a game against Chris Paul. However, I will say this.
I'm listening.
If anybody is going to try to make a case that facing Chris Paul is not worth a full night's sleep, it would be Patrick Beverley. Paul and Beverley have played each other 16 times in the regular season. The crazy thing is, Beverley has won most of those matchups with a 9-7 record. That's not all. Paul's averages in those 16 games is 16.3 points per game, 8.9 assists, and 4.3 rebounds on 38.8% from the field and 34.8% from deep. Obviously, these stats encapsulate his stats against teams that Beverley was on as opposed to his stats when Beverley specifically is guarding him. I tried finding all the stats for Beverley guarding Paul throughout their careers, and
Ain't nobody got time for that.
the stats do show that Chris Paul, from an efficiency standpoint, is way below his career averages when facing Beverley's team. Not going to lie, if everyone's telling me that this guy is the point guard and whatever else, but he performs worse against my own teams on average, I probably would not be the first one in line touting how great that player is either.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Obviously, the history between the two players plays a role in some of Beverley's candidness. Not that I am saying he is right, but I can't understand why Beverley is not personally raving about CP3.
Man, ain't nobody worried about Chris Paul when he play Phoenix Suns. Nobody in the NBA.
Well, what did I just say, though?
And I'm just letting you know how NBA players feel and think.
I believe you.
It is a bit foolhardy to extend one's personal experience to the rest of the NBA. Even another star in Damian Lillard took exception on Twitter with Beverley pushing his statements as if they were the league-wide view of Chris Paul. Especially when you acknowledge the fact that for his career, CP3 averages 18 points per game, 9.5 assists, and 4.5 rebounds on 47.3% from the field and 37% from deep. Not to mention he is a 12-time All-Star, 4-time assist champ, and is an 11-time All-NBA player. Beverley, speaking on behalf of his NBA brethren, is a step out of line when a lot of them may actually look up to CP3. Then there's also the fact that every team Chris Paul goes to vastly improves after his arrival. The Phoenix Suns were 34-39 prior to Chris Paul's arrival, then improved to 51-21 after adding CP3 with a trip to the NBA Finals to couple with it. To just write him off as a player nobody is worried about sounds a bit ludicrous. Magic Johnson sums it up pretty well here.
What has Chris Paul done for the Phoenix Suns? Ayton, we didn't see this Ayton until Chris Paul got there,
the game
right?
Easier for him, right?
The Bridges, all these guys, he makes the game so easy, and you're going to get shots that you've never gotten before, right?
Let's do the next one.
Line about
Man,
that.
CP can't guard nobody, man. Everybody in the NBA know that. Everybody know that.
Anybody.
What we call them? Cone. You know what you do with cones? Like when in the summertime, you got a cone. You make a move. What does the cone do?
Stay still.
Exactly. He's a cone. Stop playing, man.
I got
Everybody
that right.
knows that. Everyone knows that. It's just y'all don't want to accept it.
The man really didn't hold back, to say the least. Now, we can address this comment in two ways.
Say it with your chest.
Either speaking about CP3's career as a defender or just talking about this most recent season. Why not do both? When we look at Chris Paul's career and his capacity as a defensive player, he has been named to 9 all-defensive teams, with 7 of those being first-team all-defense. Funny enough, in the 2013-14 season, he was named first-team all-defense ahead of Patrick Beverley, who finished second team. Just thought it was a bit ironic.
Wouldn't let that shit happen to me, though.
Now, Beverley calls himself an elite defender and holds CP3 to that standard. However, it is interesting to see that Paul's career defensive blocks plus minus at 2.2 is better than Beverley's at 1.2. Then you look at the defensive win shares and it's evident that Chris Paul also excels in that metric as well. Although team performance does play a role in how these stats can be calculated, and it skews it up just a little bit, which is why defensive stats are normally difficult to calculate versus offensive, since defensive stats lack more context, especially when Paul and Beverley have played on teams with good defenses in different schemes and capacity. Defensive stats like their individual numbers can be hard to nail down specifically, but it was interesting to contrast both players' individual defensive numbers. Beverley actually makes opponents shoot 1.7% worse on average versus Chris Paul, who during a similar point in his career had opponents shooting 0.3% worse. Now it is obvious CP3 is older than Pat Bev, so his defense would naturally get worse as he gets older. So I tried my best to make it fair for both players. Right now Bev is 33 years old, so I took the average of their individual defensive numbers from when they were 29 to 33 years old, since the stats for CP3 only go back to when he was 29. Mind you, these numbers do not provide situational contents like pick and roll coverage, drop coverage, etc. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I would say though that all these stats and accolades do prove Chris Paul's mettle as a defender. Players obviously decline on defense as they get older, so it's unfair for Beverley to expect him to still be an elite defender at this position, let alone to call the man a cone. CP3 has not even been a bad defender, as he has a better defensive rating than Beverley this season. Funny how that works. Look, I normally try to value what players say since they are the ones that are playing the games. However, that does not mean they are always right. I can see what he may have been getting at in the first clip, especially when you consider the actual results in their head-to-head matchups. But a lot of stuff after that feels a bit vindictive. Could just be me though. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. Of course, if you like this channel and you like the video and the content, of course, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe and hit the post notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Also, make sure you guys go ahead and share the video with a friend. It always helps the videos get out there and also helps them circulate in the YouTube algorithm. Let me know what you all think about this video, and let me know if you got what you think about the whole entire Patrick Beverley when he was on his whole entire media tour, just essentially going in on Chris Paul. Let me know what you guys think about that as a whole, and as well as make sure you guys follow me on social media. I have my TikTok, I have my Instagram, as well as the KBR Sports Instagram and Twitter page, all linked down below. You can catch those for video content that sometimes doesn't even get posted on YouTube. It only gets posted on those platforms. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out, as well as check out the KBR Sports podcast. You know, those podcast episodes, a lot of times when the videos aren't coming out on a regular basis, sometimes you'll be able to consume the podcast content. So make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. And of course, if you guys have any questions for me or any video topics, go ahead and comment them down below. I'll be happy to talk about whatever videos you guys have in mind, and also be able to make a full deep dive. I'm thinking about doing a whole lot of different series of videos since the off season is coming up, and I wanted to have a lot of different variation of videos and that I could have in tow that I could be putting out during the off season. But guys, until next time, I'm out.